you working with someone and they have the same ego that I had, it was the most frustrating thing. And I kind of like looked at myself. It was like, this is where I'm going wrong. When I went back onto the tools, I made them adjustments. So if I didn't know something, I'd go, look, I don't know this. Can you just show me this? Or why does that work like that? What I found was my apprenticeship just went, boom, finished. So if you drop the ego and actually like be yourself, ask questions, be inquisitive, move forward in life.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to Constructing Mindsets. I'm your host, Vincent Saunders. This is all about changing the way we talk about the construction industry. Whether you're on the tools or supporting others behind the scene, we are hearing from the people who are shining their light and making a difference. Thanks for joining us. Let's get into the episode. It's got Brandon McAllister, builder, qualified builder, licensed LBP. Pretty happy for, happy really just for you to talk about as much as you want or whatever you want really. It's kind of I guess the idea really is around this podcast is just to talk about construction in a good way.
Yeah.
I personally think it can be quite a negative industry. And yeah, I'm not saying it's perfect. It's not saying it's the best industry in the world to be in, but I think it's probably better to talk about good things rather than just focus on all the negatives and the bad things, because you can't really control those most of the time.
Closely linked to some other guests you've had on this. So I'm part of the Live Well Build Well group, and like Narissa, I also did the Mates in Construction last year.
Yep.
And me and her are both team captains this year.
Is that that's for the boxing, hey?
That's for the boxing, for the High Pool Clash of Construction. So we raise money for Mates in Construction.
Yeah.
So I'm very big into the whole mental health in construction side.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. It is a negative topic, and I think that if you look at it, so obviously construction is has the number one suicide rate, and of 99% of the people in it committing suicide are men.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just a case of look. Well, what I like to do is with my content. So I do social media and stuff like that as well, the Instagram stuff. And with my stuff, I like to push like, hey, let's talk. And I know a lot of people say let's talk, but I put a video out in June. It was Men's Mental Health Month, and I put a video out with some issues that I was going through a couple of years ago. And the idea was, as soon as I put that out, I had guys in my messages going, I went through this, I went through that, I went through this. So sometimes I think it just takes one person going, nah, this is the problem, that was the problem. But everything I do is I go, if you focus too much on the negative, it stays negative. So what I try and do is like go, look, there is a negative here. What positive thing can we do to counter? Because you can't fix negativity with negativity. So you need to fix it with positivity, and that's essentially what I try and do in my content.
Yeah, well, happy for kind of just this conversation just to roll through. Yeah, I don't know if you had anything specific that you wanted to talk about, but I don't know, generally we can maybe just touch base on how you became a builder, maybe a few, I don't know, it's always good to maybe, like you said, talk about a couple of challenges, how you've kind of moved through those. They don't have to be work related, they could be, anything related. Just totally up to you. And then, maybe just touch on some career highlights, maybe talk about some of how you sort of came across Live Well, Build Well, sort of maybe a bit of background on that, how they maybe reached out to you or what you think the change should be, some sort of stuff like that. I think if we can just try and talk about some stuff, but then also talk about the good stuff and the positive stuff that's out there. Because I think I 100% agree with you, you can't really just fight negativity with negativity. There's got to be, there's got to be a good thing.
Yep, 100% agree with you. Well, let's go to the beginning and how I become a builder.
Yeah, well, you're from the UK.
Yes.
That's right. So we'll touch on that first. No, it's all good. It's all good. So I spent like 3 years in the UK. So, but yeah, when did you come to New Zealand, and kind of how did you get here in the first place?
So I never personally chose this. Okay, so essentially I was at school. I was one of them. And it's quite funny if you actually look at the characteristics of most builders, right? They've got some sort of ADHD or something like that. That was me at school. All right, I was too busy trying to be funny than be smart. Got to the end of school and I was realising, I'm not going to get the grades I need to go into uni back in the UK. So I went, I'm going to join the army. It was the best thing I could do. And at that point, my parents would, in the background, decided, we want to move to Oz, but we don't like the killer spiders, so we're going to go to New Zealand. So they applied and got on a skilled shortage list. They got a faster visa. And they said, well, look, you can either go to the army. I haven't got much family in the UK. They went, you can go to the army, and we're all going to be in New Zealand. You'll have to apply for your visa later. So I was like, darn, I'll go to New Zealand. And I thought I was going to go back to. I mean, bear in mind at this point I'm 17. I thought I was going to go back to school. But see, as soon as we got here, my parents were like, "Look, mate, you've been at school for like all your life and you've never achieved anything. So if you go back to school, we know you're just going to mess around again. So you need a job." So then on the old websites looking for a job, and the first thing I got was a labouring job for Hayes Recruitment, and then that's how I started. That's how I started the site. I just fell into it.
What were you doing on this labouring job? Was that your first time on a construction site?
Yeah, so my dad's a carpenter, so we've always worked on houses growing up. But that was my first time on an actual site, especially like on my own. Not my dad there to protect me, sort of thing. I'm like, I have no clue what to do. So I went and I was working in Glenfield, I remember, and it was a car showroom in
Like
Glenfield,
a commercial, like a
like a fit out.
development. Yeah, okay.
And I went there and I was like, I don't know what to do. And I was useless. I was really bad. But then, like, what it would do is I'd walk around and I'd just, like, look at traders and go, I reckon I could do that. Then I'd walk around somewhere else and go, I reckon I could do that. And what I realised was through recruitment companies, if you build up a toolkit, they technically class you as a hammer hand. So I was like, oh, I'm going to use my labour money to build up a toolkit. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it, and I was actually making my own money for the first time in my life. I felt like a big guy. And the negative though was in the UK, you have to be 17 when you start driving. I couldn't drive, so there was some jobs. So I used to borrow my dad's cycle, his bike, and I used to there would be some jobs I remember. We used to live in like Mount Wellington area, and I'd wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to cycle to the airport. Too tight to pay for travel as well, so I just cycle there.
That's a big cycle, like from Mount Wellington to the airport. That's, I don't know, like 20 k's, 30 k's or something. That's a long way.
Part of it is like it looks like a motorway, but it's like a freeway. So
You survived your. So how long were you labouring on that commercial site for?
probably 2 years. Well, work was inconsistent. We hit Christmas, and it was they were like sites closed. So I went with AWF, and I was working for both companies at the same time because AWF paid less, but it was more consistent.
Just like run us through a day as a labourer on sort of one of those commercial developments or commercial building.
A lot of it's take A to B, move this A to B, and then until like they need something done, and then this is where, and then there's something about me where I'm quite competitive, and as I said, I was building up a toolkit, so they go, oh, we want this done, and I know you need like a hammer for it or something like that, and I've got a tool belt with me now, so then I'll go and do it, and they'll go, oh, you can do that, or I'll put you on this, and then I'll get put onto that, and then they'd like to do what I find quite funny now, but they go, oh, you're the head labourer, which means you're on the same money, but you have all this responsibility. Yeah, and it was just a case, and it was all about the people you meet, right? So then I met a guy who installs range hoods. So then I become a range hood installer. I helped him get his business going. And then I was like, oh, I don't like this. I want to do something different. So then I went into building management sort of thing. So I was like, yep. So I was working on body corps and I learned that side of stuff. I just kind of fell into that. It was just right place at the right time. So I was like, I interview normally pretty well, and they were like, loved it. So they were like, oh, come in, yeah, we'll give you a go. That was active building management, really good company still.
And then so your transition into a builder, sort of maybe just talk us through that, how that...
Off this, because what would happen was, so at this point I've learned how to drive just before this job, and I've got this job. Then I got my little polo, my little blue polo, and I went to I used to look after a building by myself, which was in Mount Roskill, and we had Legacy Construction doing some waterproof work there, and there'd be little stuff like handles would come off and stuff like that. And because I was a labourer on site, everyone would go, oh, you can fix that. I didn't have a clue how to fix it. And then I was just like, I'm here. And I really loved it at the time. And I was just like, I'd love to come back to this, but I'd love to know a trade as well. So then that's when I wanted to get into the trades, and I tried to become a sparky. I get a phone call and your dad's taking me on.
Okay, and how did that come about?
So I was working for NZA, New Zealand. They're like recruiters, so they try and find you a builder. And then they said to me, look, we can't find any electrical work for you, so the only other thing is site work. And I was just like, oh, I don't know, because I've never been cared about detail work. I was just more about, I could throw wires into a wall, but I couldn't, do the intricate stuff. so I weren't too keen. And then it was just a case of, oh, I'm just going to do it. I'm wasting too much time now. And then I jumped on site with your dad.
Do you still come back to some stuff that you learnt during then, or what were some key takeaways for you?
Well, I think the first thing was when I think back, your dad was very patient with me. I was terrible. I was terrible. And, but at the time, I was like, no, I'm pretty good. I'm not that bad. But like, now I think back, I'm like, oh my God, that was bad. But yeah, no, to be fair, I learn't a lot. So that was so essentially what we were doing at that point was, you will remember this, is we were throwing up the townhouses in Swanson. And a lot of it was framing. So, but the beauty of it was such repetitive work. I could build a house essentially from scratch. You know, like we got the frames on site. We stand the frames up, mid floor, top floor, roofing, and then it allowed me to get all the framing, which people who go into renovation companies struggle with later on in their apprenticeship. And it gave me, because it was such repetitive work, I wasn't the best at the time, but it gave me an opportunity to practice and practice and practice and practice and practice and get better. So, I think but the biggest takeaway was just how bad I was at it. I was just so bad, but I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it at that point. You know what I mean? And then I think it was, and the beauty of it was as well, because we were working in stages. You'd look over at a house you'd done like 3 months back, and there's a family living in there now, and you're like, oh, I did that. You know. Yeah.
One day that you that clicked, that you're like, okay, this could be a career for myself?
I think it was like most things in my life. Whenever I do it, I'm quite hard on myself, so I think, oh, I'm not very good at this. I'm not very good at this. And then what it was is the stuff that I was too scared to, because you go, oh, we're going mid floor soon. I'm scared to walk on the joist, rah rah rah. And then what it was is that list of things that I couldn't do was just getting smaller and smaller and smaller, just through consistency and I think from that, when I really I'd always try and avoid stuff I didn't like. So like, for example, I'm not good I was terrible on roofs. Like, that was again one of the things I think annoyed your dad. I was crawling on the purlins because I hated it. And then over time, I forced myself into uncomfortable situations, stuff I didn't like, and I grew from it. I'm going to get good at it. Oh, I'm just going to keep doing that. So then that's when I was like, yeah, Grant, I'll take the plans. I'll set out the frames for you. I'll do this. I'll do that, and back myself a little bit, even if I weren't 100% confident. Because even in the negative experiences and stuff I don't enjoy, you're going to take something from it, and I'm going to grow as a person. If I mess it up, I think the beauty of it was the amount of times I messed up. That was the best thing, because I had to fix it as well. So I knew not only how to do it then, but if someone else goes wrong, I go wrong in the future, I know how to fix it. So I learned and what can go wrong. So then when we had like younger apprentices coming in, and like you'd be showing them how to do something, I know where they're going to go wrong as well. And like, you kind of like let them make it. And I think that was a beauty. And then I start learning like the science behind it, the secret to building, which is not how to do something, it's the why behind it. Then you can come up with your own how after that. My biggest takeaway, I think, from it.
So finding why you need to do it a certain way, and looking at the other things that are involved either before and after that process.
Yeah, so now I work with loads of apprentices and help them. And I say, and they're like, oh, how do I do this step by step? And I go, look, everyone's got different ways of doing everything. I said, but the biggest thing that you need to do is work out why. And an example of that would be like a building cavity. Well, how does a building cavity work? Well, you've got your cavity pattern, vertical cavity pattern. The water's meant to run down the outside, and then it runs down to here, and then you need your 150 lap because water can come back upside. You know what I mean? And you learn the science behind it, then how you execute it. As long as you're ticking them points and you go, right, water could come up through here, so I'm going to do this. That's how you grow as a builder. And I've had lots of apprentices start trying doing that, and they're going, oh, I've made bigger leaps and bounds in my apprenticeship.
How did you kind of come up with that?
Well, the biggest one, and you'll know this one as well, being a builder, DPC 80s, and people putting them on the wrong way. Like, that's the biggest one. And then it was like, that was the first one, and I was like, how do they work? And you have obviously the long side and the short side, and the long side holds the timber, the short side's the anchor, so I'm pulling it into there. And then once I learnt the how and that, I was like, oh, so that's how it works. And then obviously if someone came over and was like, no, you need to put it on the other way, you go, well, no, because this is how it works. This is how this thing works. And then I was like, then it grew, and I was like, well, how does this work? How does that work? And learning how stuff works and why it works. And then, because the thing is, you work with so many different builders, we've all got different ways, right? But like the most important part is how it works. And yeah, that's the point. That's why. Because if you read like 3604 and all that sort of stuff, it doesn't tell you how to do stuff. It just tells you why, you know what I mean, the reasons. It will give you rough, like, this needs to overlap this by this. But it's not telling you how to put the nails and how to, you know what I mean? That's what it is, and you learn the science behind it. And then it actually becomes fun again. I mean, it's like being at school again. Like, you learn it, and then that's where the people ask you questions. You can go, well, I know how this should work, so if I apply that to your situation, you should do this, 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 this. And then people are like, oh, that's actually quite helpful. So that's the secret behind building, I feel. The why. The how can come later. How you do it's later. It's the why, you know.
Fast forward through your building apprenticeship, sort of you finished your building apprenticeship, and then kind of how did you, sort of what was the time from then to what you're doing now?
Well, it was actually, so when I was with your dad as an apprentice, I was like a third year or second year, and I had a child, and we were skint, and I was living out in Skintsport, and I was living out in Bethels, and I was paying for my partner and my child off an apprentice wage, and I was like, this is really bad. And them new subdivisions that were next to us, a few of the people who lived there came over to me and was like, oh, do you reckon you could like frame a shed for me? You know, like a flat pack shed. And I was like, again, like what I said, I say yes and then try and learn how to do it later. I'd go, yeah, I can do that. So I'd YouTube it that night, and you watch a tutorial from the company, and they're like, oh, it takes 2 hours. So I probably 10. So I lost on it. But then his neighbour came over and was like, oh, you should do this. And then that's when I was like, oh, I like this. I like, pricing jobs and doing that. And then I also was like, I need to do some renovation work, because although the work I was doing was really good and I learnt a lot, it was also a case of I've learnt everything I can. There's only so much times you can put that house together, and it's the same thing over and over again now. And I've got it like clockwork. Like I could build it without the plans at this point. So then I went and joined a renovation company after that. I carried on doing my little side work to pay the bills.
Nice. And I guess going from sort of doing that mass housing to sort of quick mass housing to a residential sort of builder developer, what are some of the differences that you found moving into that residential space?
Different building types and different building methods. So obviously, as soon as you go into renovations, you're working on 60s, 70s house, and then you've got loads of problems there. So where they stuff cavities with newspapers, different things like that, and then you've also got different hazards, right? So 70s houses, you're looking at asbestos, and you need to get your destructive testing done, and obviously make sure you've got all that sorted out. So there's so many different aspects and challenges and stuff that you wouldn't think of when doing simple housing, and it was just more of a puzzle, and then also if the clients are living there, there's all these other aspects like working with a team, like, oh, did they get the music up too loud? Are we messy? Are we, and that's what I loved. It was more of the challenge and the change in challenge.
Taking us to, I guess, kind of what you're up to now. Like, are you able to just take me through sort of what you're doing at the moment?
So I did residential. I finished my apprenticeship I become a contractor to finish my apprenticeship, and I went on to high-end architectural houses for a builder in Remuera. And essentially, I'm a contractor. I'm just doing high-end residential work. Again, I'm just really competitive, and I like the challenge of like seeing who can do the best miters, and like also if my miter's bad, I like it when people point it out, or if they've done something bad, I point it out, and it just keeps it fun. But that's what I'm up to at the minute.
Sort of you talked about sort of having your struggles through school and things like that. Like what's one thing or a couple of things that say coming out of school, not knowing what to do and maybe looking into building, like what's sort of the first step that they could take if they wanted to get into the building trade, and what's there to look forward to for them?
So I think personally that trades are like, we should all be doing them. We've got a shortage on builders at the minute, and that's for multiple reasons. It could be pay or whatever. The fact is, it's like so secure. You can go, all builders don't make as much as they used to in this current climate, but ultimately, if you lose a job at Pizza Hut and no other Pizza Huts are hiring, you're out of a job completely. If you lose a job as a builder, so if I lose my job now, I can make a phone call and I'll be working again by Monday, in a few days' time. So that's the thing that people need to realise, the security in trades, and if you don't know what you want to do, don't commit to a degree. Don't go, I just want to live that uni life, because the thing is, you're going to have a massive debt and still not have that degree. Of the people I went to school with, probably 10% of them actually finish university. The rest of them just have the debt there. So if you don't know what you want to do leaving school, I would recommend just work on site. To be fair, you meet every person from every background on that site. You get the mick taken out of you a little bit. You take the mick out of other people. You have a fun work. It doesn't feel like work some days. You know, you're having a laugh and a joke, and you learn. You know, once you stop, you know, you drop the ego a little bit and actually pay attention. You learn, and then if you buy a house one day, everyone has this dream of buying a house. Well, if you're not a tradie or something like that, that's going to cost you so much. Whereas if you become a tradie, you don't need to master all the trades. You will have connections in other trades, and then you know you can help them, and you know that's just how it keeps the world spinning. So yeah, if you don't know what you want to do, get a trade.
Briefly just touch on, you said drop the ego. Like, what do you mean by that?
Well, there's a quite. I struggled through my apprenticeship, and the reason I struggled through my apprenticeship was I said, right, I want to be a qualified carpenter. For this BCITO guy to sign me off, I need to make him think that I know everything. So then again, that attitude I used for most of my life, where I go, I know everything, and then I'll try and teach myself later. Like that was all ego on my part because I wanted to be the best. So I just pretended I was the best, and then tried to make up the rest. During my apprenticeship, I actually got my level 6 in construction management and become a site manager for about a year. I'd done one project and went, yeah, this ain't for me right now. But what I learned was, you know, when you're working with someone and they have the same ego that I had, it was the most frustrating thing because you'd put them on something and they couldn't finish it, and then I kind of like looked at myself. It was like I had all these different characters on site, and I looked at them and like saw a piece of myself in them, and I was like, you know, this is where I'm going wrong. Like, you know, I think I'm the best. I'm, you know, this, that, and the other. So when I went back onto the tools, I made them adjustments. So if I didn't know something, I'd go, look, you know, I don't know this. You know, can you just show me this, or you know, why does that work like that? You know, and then what I found was my apprenticeship just went, boom, finished. I'm now running jobs back to back to back to back, you know, and it propelled me. So if you drop the ego and actually like be yourself, ask questions, you know, be inquisitive, that's where I kind of, you know, move forward in life.
You dropped the ego and then sort of you took off from there. What was a couple of things that maybe you changed, a couple of examples that maybe changed in your day to day that sort of helped you progress?
Yeah. Well, the main one was and it kind of goes on to how I got into Instagram as well. Was I'd look at builders' work online, and because I've just done group homes and stuff like that, then when I dropped the ego night, I went, sure, I'm just going to take my time. Yeah, I'm not going to go, I'm going to try and beat everyone and do it super quick. You know, I'm just going to do a job that I'm proud of. So my goal now in life is to do work, and then when I walk away, you know, I'm proud of it.
When sort of you dropped your ego and started asking questions about things, like how was that, you know, sort of how was that received from, you know, the person you were asking the question?
Well, I think it was, so I'd ask questions as a younger apprentice, and it weren't taken as well as at this point. And I think the difference was the place I was coming from when I was asking it, because I genuinely wanted to know now, you know, and genuinely ask questions. So it got received way better at this point in my life because I actually want to know and I'm actually trying to learn, you know. And then once I learn, I'm going to search it up as well and just double check if there's any other ways that this works or how this works. So at this point, and because I didn't have this bravado around me, going, yeah, I know everything. That, you know, the fact that I dropped that and I was just even admitted, look, I don't know this. Can you teach me? Like there was people on site I would clash with heaps. Like I'd just keep clashing with them, you know, because obviously I'm this young guy who thinks he knows everything. You know, they've seen hundreds of me come through, and at this point, once I dropped it and go, look, you know, you've been doing this way longer than me. Can you show me how you do this? Or this is how I would do it, but I don't think this is right. Do you know a better way of doing it? Like that. I mean, my relationships with people on site got better. I learned way more and way more different ways of doing stuff. And even if they go, right, this is how I do it, and I go, I only like this part of what they do, you know, and then I like to finish it off my way. That's still, I've got a whole new way of doing it, and I've learned.
Great little line, pulling positives out of everything. Like, how do you do that?
Well, I think it's because I've got quite tough parents. So, you know, they would never let me feel sorry for myself for anything, you know. And I think the biggest thing, and the biggest thing that most people, you know, can if you could adopt anything out this into this chat in your life, the biggest thing I would say would be look at yourself and go, well, what did I do in any situation? What did I do? You know, like, you know, your girlfriend's left you. and you're upset. She did this, she did that. But what did I do? I think I really did that, and this really come into my life with my partner because we had kids. I'm on site. I'm studying at night, and we're always arguing. And at that point, I was quite immature. I had to mature quite quickly. But I'm going. I'm trying to work on something. I'm trying to provide a life. She doesn't know. She doesn't know. But then, if you apply what I just said, what did I do? Well, I was leaving her at home with kids like 10 hours a day by herself. She's got no interaction with any other adult. Well, maybe if I take the kids on the weekend and let her have time to herself or so on and so forth, that'll improve that situation. And I use that on site as well. If I have a negative interaction with someone, I go, well, what did I do? Oh, he's angry about this, but actually last week I did, put my tools on top of his and he couldn't find them or so on and so forth. So saying, what did I do? And actually admitting what you've done and not going, I did this, but that's because he did this, Just go, this is what I did.
What are some of the benefits there?
Well, I think I've grown up more in the past 2 years than I have in the other 25 years I've been alive, Just because I can admit when I've done something wrong, and that's what it is. And the beauty of that is, and I know we'll come on to the whole social media side of things. When I connect with, because I've talked to people like you, people far more intelligent than I am. I can connect to people better now because I'm a lot more humble with it, and I realise I'm not. I thought I was really smart, but I'm not. And the what did I do scenario where I'm constantly picking at myself, going, well, do this, do that. What it does is it just improves every situation of my life. Socially, work-wise, quality-wise, everything. And then, which in terms social quality, work standards go up, then your pay goes up, then you start earning more money, you start having more responsibility. People start respecting you more, and you feel better in life. You feel like you've got more of a purpose, and that's all from pointing at my own problems.
Yeah, like it's not an easy thing to turn the mirror around and look south. So I think it goes without saying. Like I think it's a pretty admirable place to be in. Like you're still late 20s, is it now, Brendan?
About to turn 28.
Yeah, so like you're at a great age and a great mindset to have that insight into your career and your own mindset as well. Like it's great self-awareness.
As I said, but again, it was just growing up with parents, and they're like, well, what did you do? If you get in trouble with school, you're like, well, they did this, they did that. He goes, well, I'm not their parents, I'm your parents. What did you do? And like, you always hate your parents. You don't pay attention to them at that age. But then as I got older, I was like, and I think having my own kids now as well, and like they're naughty, and you're like, one of them's like, Grayson did this, and I'm like, well, what did you do? Like, what did you do? I did this. Well, do you reckon that caused that? Cause and effect. So yeah, no, different experiences I've pulled from it just helped me grow as a person and connect with obviously great people like yourself. One thing I realised is just don't rush the process. I was always trying to rush the process, and it ended up taking me longer. I think I got qualified in like 5 years instead of like 4. Sometimes, and I know this, I'm not necessarily religious, but I do think like obviously there's a plan for everyone. You just take your time and just enjoy the process, because the thing is, I rushed it. Like I tried to my best to get qualified, tried to do that, but then once you get there, you're just like, you're qualified now. Like you haven't got all these like schemes you're part of. Take your time, man. Enjoy the process.
Nice. How you got involved with Live Well, Build Well, and kind of what are the aspects of that you enjoy, and sort of some of the things you enjoy about that?
Yeah, so I've touched on it a little bit, but obviously I made the whole social media thing, and I started doing the whole Instagram thing.
So did your social media come first?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's how,
Okay,
and the beauty of it was, so I do a lot of stories, and because I've obviously humbled myself and I'm quite authentic as a person, I put that online, and what that did to me was I met different brands and different companies, one of them being Live Well, Build Well, and then I met up with Raf and obviously spoke to him about the process and all that. And again, so I'd already done the boxing for Mates and Construction, and then when I spoke to Raf, he's like, well, obviously Live Well, Build Well's, Mates and Construction is like the ambulance, ready to, help the people, for example. But Live Well, Build Well obviously focus on lifestyle changes, right? So what dietary changes can we make that will improve mental health? And it's not even looking at mental health, it's just, if you operate at 70%, maybe, I know you like to go for runs. Maybe if you fit in a few more runs this week, you're going to be operating at 80%, 90%. That's the focus of Live Well, Build Well. And then when he mentioned that to me, I was just like, that's perfect, because I've just gone through a boxing camp and I'm putting all this time in and into this camp, and what I realised was I'm looking better, I'm feeling better, and now I'm operating better on site. So like the idea was that it worked with me, because I was like, oh yeah, lifestyle changes to improve mental performance and mental well-being, you know. So yeah, once he mentioned that to me, I was on board 100%.
Just touching on that, like you did your boxing camp was it last year or the year before? Yeah, so just take us through maybe what sort of maybe some of that fitness stuff you were doing.
Well, it's not going to be a model change, but essentially I was rocking around 128 kilos. At the end of camp, after 13 weeks, I weighed 92 kilos. Yeah, so I dieted very, very hard on. But essentially what it was is, like, physically, I would, like, never think, like, I could push myself to a certain level. You know what I mean? Like, and again, it was similar to when I said I don't think, I used to think I wasn't very good on site. Physically, I thought, oh, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. And what it was is, it pushed me to that point, and then pushing me to that point, because you have to build your fitness up. And then I was going to all these extra classes, and every class I could go to, I was going to. I was training 6 days a week. 3 hours a day minimum, and it's just going hard. And then what I was realizing was, as I was getting fit, I was like, oh, I'm getting really fit. Like, never been known for fitness. I'm built like a house. I run like a building, like no fitness, but I was just like, I'm getting quite fit now. And then when I'm going to work now, and then because I was dieting and stuff like that, I got through all the food cravings, because I'm one of them people who like to eat a lot. And I got to work, and I just feel like, oh, I'm feeling good, like, yeah, I'll do that. I can lift this. I can. If there was a hill at work, I'd struggle. Now, because I was working at the bottom of a really long driveway, and like everyone struggled with this driveway, like they have to take breaks halfway through. But like, I was just like, yeah, this is fit. I'll run up to this van. I don't mind. I'll do this. Yeah, it just it changed everything for me at that point, mentally as well, because I was in a bit of a rut before it. You start getting a bit dark. You're like, I'm not really going anywhere. And then I did this, and it was just like, wow, like just the fitness side of it alone, and also then getting into the ring, again hit me again, the anxiety, the fear, like I can't do this, like what am I even doing this for? If I back out, no one's going to judge me. And then I forced myself to do it.
Going through that process, like, sounds like you got quite far out of your comfort zone. What were some things that you took away from that whole process?
I think I felt like I'd operate better, I felt like it was clear. My head was clear. I think just the physical side of it, I'm not carrying that extra 30 kilos around hanging off me, So physically, I'd be able to go through the day a lot better, I'm training 3 hours a day, but working full time as well, and I was doing it quite comfortably, and I was like, I'm feeling really good. And then I think it annoyed my partner a little bit, because I was coming home feeling too good. You're like, I'm feeling really good. I might go for a run. Like, and I'd go home and then go for a run after training. I really like it. I was like David Goggins. But so that annoyed her a little bit. She was like, chill out a little bit. I was like, nah, I'm just going to shadow box out the back.
It's kind of just that energy, that kind of external energy just like translates to.
And then once you're positive you bring that positivity into a negative room, then other people you're around, And even if sometimes they'll just be like, you're going to get knocked out, and laugh at me, But the room's laughing. Everyone's positive, you know what I mean?
You've been on a huge journey to obviously lose the weight, and then obviously get out of your comfort zone to do the event. Like, there's a lot in there over quite a small space.
The downside to that, though, was once you go through fight night, and everyone experiences this, the emptiness you feel straight after it, because you got nothing there.
Where are you at now on that boxing journey, or sort of your fitness journey?
So I'm back. I'm back in fight camp now. I'm back. I'm red team captain opposite Narissa, who's blue team captain for this year's.
Geez, who am I going to support, red or blue team?
Oh, I don't know. It doesn't matter, to be fair. Whoever you support, all proceeds go to Mason Construction. We were a bit slow with sign-ups this year, so we had to delay it out a week. It's normally a 13-week camp. It's 12-week. I could be the economy, cost of living. I don't want to drop money into a training camp, plus the time commitment. But ultimately, it's such a good thing, because my point of view, if you go on YouTube, you can watch me get beaten up, all right. But not just that, I think we raised over $100,000 towards mental health and construction. That's so important because everyone talks about mental health. I care about mental health. I care about mental health, but it's like, what are you actually doing to improve, other people's? Because once you start helping other people, that's when it's like, it almost transcends. You love it. Once you start helping other people, then you start going, oh, I've got a purpose now. Last year we raised over $100,000. I hope we can beat that this year. I can't remember the exact number. I think it might have been 140,000. But that's all to obviously our brothers and sisters in this trade, in all trades, and yeah, we hope to do the same again.
You talked earlier about people reaching out to you on social media and just talking through some of your stuff you do on social media. Are you just able to maybe, I don't know, quickly just talk through some of the points that you're trying to get across on social media?
Yeah, well, essentially, so I started posting work stuff, and so on social media, it's just a bit of a community. So I was posting work content, and then I was just like, I think I was just, and then I started posting boxing content, and then it was a case of, well, I've just raised all this money for charity, so then I post something about Movember, and then again more work content, and then now I've got to a point where then brands will start messaging me going, oh, can you try this out and make a video about it? So then I'll start working with different brands. But then as soon as you build a bit of a platform, I was just like, well, actually, I'm going to ask this brand about this. Or, you find a lot of times with like mental health and stuff like that, it's mostly, there will be a 1 month where everyone talks about it, but then no one will talk about it for the rest of the year. So then I use my personal platform to, obviously, I talk about mental health quite regularly. I talk about, different potential problems I see with the trade and suggest different ideas. Another thing I do was through certain connections was, I was talking about the way us as carpenters work and the way I see the industry works is, if I want to make good money and work for myself, I've got a couple of options, right? Price jobs, try and win jobs, and then, if I haven't got the money and the capital or the experience, I've kind of got to either pay a QS to price this job. And if you're doing small to medium construction, that's not feasible, and then potentially not even win the work, so then I'm just wasting money. So then what I did is I've talked to different companies like Dindo, which is an Australian company that do takeoffs for people, and they can do takeoffs and job management for builders. Essentially, I've spoken to them. We're discussing different membership strategies for people, just to give people the best footing. I've just become qualified on license. I want to start a business, build a business up. Can I work with them? And then potentially I'm in talks with Builders Crack as well about possibly, how to feed these builders work. So essentially I could sit at home on my computer and price 10 jobs up without leaving the house, without all the money. And essentially what I do is I look at the industry and go, I see this as a problem. What connections can I pull on to improve that for people?
Yourself out there quite a lot. How's that been received from the industry?
So it started off slow, and then I got like a big jump, and then it started to go down again. We got a big jump, and then as soon as you get all the numbers, people are like, oh, can you review this? Can you review that? And then the numbers start dropping down again because you're just doing loads of sponsored stuff. So what I like to do now, and then I kind of find my passion in it. So what I do is I do trade-related skits, like funny skits. That's just what I do. And then what I do is I go like, what characters have I met on site? And I'll just make a video. And ever since I started doing that, people are like, oh, that's so funny. One of the biggest ones I did was I did a just a 10-second video off the cuff of one of my sons. And I had him pretending he was grinding. I was like, Bowie, where's your safety glasses? And he goes, safety squint. You know the safety squint. We've all done the safety squint. Because it's relatable, people just find it funny and they're sharing it and that. So, and then once people get in touch with me, talking to me, then we can talk about I make connections with these people. That next thing you know, I'm popping up to them going, bro, I've seen you've been doing this. Good on you, mate. I really think that's good. Or this person's got a problem, I'll talk to them about that.
Nice. Yeah. So do you think kind of big leap to go from apprentice builder to then maybe starting your own business? Like, is there that's quite a big leap and a big stressful leap? Like, what are some gaps there that you think are missing, and what might be helpful for some young people looking to start a business?
That's a great. I've touched on this online before quite a lot. Essentially, no one teaches you how to price a job. So, and then if you do a course, so I've done right. Yeah, I did it in my level 6 in construction management. But what I'm doing is I'm doing it from a QS's point of view on a big commercial job. And I've got a book with a schedule of quantities in there that I'm applying to this job. Right? But the thing is, it doesn't work like here because I'm going to price to change, pull this wall or reline this wall. But as soon as I pull it off, all the studs are messed up. Now I've got to try and talk to the client. And again, no one teaches you this side. What do you do in that situation, right? What documents do you need in place? What contracts? How to actually operate, and how to actually operate as a business, So, like what insurances do I need in place? How do I get accounts of merchants and that sort of stuff? Like, what accounts do I need? How does the LBP scheme work? Things, because obviously I've got my carpentry LBP, but then if I wanted to do a full renovation, I need to go get my site manager's LBP because I need to be able to sign off the plumbers and the sparkies, right? But no one teaches you all that sort of stuff. It's stuff you kind of got to learn. But I think the key one, if you really wanted to, I think what should be implemented is after your apprenticeship, there should be, even if it's like a 6-month course, because they do a course where you overlook trades, like a level 5. They should do a course for business, just for trade related business, because it's such a big topic, and you have so many experienced people out there and experts on this. I feel like it'd be quite easy to pull a course together. And that was again another thing I was obviously thinking about, like, what could I do, or who could I pull in to teach this topic? But that's definitely something I think needs to be done, because ultimately, you probably go, why do we need it? Well, if I'm a tradie now. I want to start a business, so I'm going to price this job. Oh, down it, I've priced it wrong. Now I'm halfway through the job, and what do? Do I just go screw it and work the rest of the job for free, potentially lose my house because I can't pay my bills, can't feed my kids? Or at this point, do I go, do you know what, I'm just going to liquidate and leave the customer? Because how many times have we heard about customers being left with half-done jobs and this cowboys took my money and ran? But maybe that person didn't know how to actually operate a business and how to price it. And from where I look, there's different things I can sign up to, but there's nothing like, look, we actually teach you how to do this. We're proven on doing this. And I think that's the thing, like teaching people how to actually operate in businesses, because at that point, there's more businesses now around. There's more like 2-man bands, 3-man bands around, which then means a knock-on effect, more jobs for more people, you know what I mean? So then the industry is growing in that sense. Because at the minute, the only thing I can do is like contract to a builder, go out on my own and potentially have that situation I just said, or just work as a number in a big company, and then them big companies have the monopoly. So I think there should be more contract companies, like contractors, and then they can go get their work for the Fletchers or Fulton Hogan or wherever. So I think that should be the thing, because then we're just making more jobs. You're giving people the power to provide more jobs, and it makes more jobs and then more places for apprentices to go. I've seen so many apprentices now that like I have nowhere to go. I don't know where I can work, And it's like, well, if we allowed people to be able to run a business and teach them how to do it, it's option. I promise you, if they offered a course next year, they'll do it 2026, any training organisation, straight after the apprenticeship, everyone will sign up for it. Everyone, you'll be full straight away. So it's not like there's not the people who want to do it. So I mean, I'd sign up for it. So
it's just getting all that information and the funding. No, sweet. Well, is there anything else you wanted to finish on, or what did you want to? Yeah, anything else you wanted to chat through while I got you?
No. I think what you're doing here is great. I really enjoy the focus. I do have to agree. Your Instagram's a bit behind.
I know, mate. It's just honestly, it's just the time, because like, it's just time, man. Like I got 2 kids. I got a full-time job, and then pushing. So like I record this podcast on here, I edit it, I can do all the clips on here, but then I got to put one on LinkedIn, one on Instagram, on YouTube, and it's all like slightly different formats.
Yeah.
So like you theoretically got to put 3 different formats out. But yeah, hopefully I'm trying to, I've got some stuff hopefully coming out a bit more on Instagram, like try to be a bit more sort of Monday. Want to do sort of like mindset tips on Monday, maybe Tuesday, Wednesday clips, because I usually post a podcast on a Wednesday mornings, Tuesday, Wednesday, or maybe like Tuesday, Thursday. I just want to get a little bit more consistent throughout the week. But yeah, it's just time, man. It's just time.
It's good that there's another Kiwi podcast. I think obviously we need to get more apprentices in. That's one thing, and it's how do we make it? The way I feel, and this could be quite a negative outlook. The way I feel is like, when I first started, we were the second highest in suicide, the construction industry. We're now number 1. How do we convince? If you look at it from this point, I like to phrase it as a nice question. How do we convince apprentices to join an industry where we have the number 1 suicide rate? And then it's quite easy. What we do is we look at it and go, right, where's the problems here? You know what I mean? You know, obviously there's pay. There's like, you know, how apprentices are treated on site. There's also the apprentice, the way the apprentices are ran. You know, the apprenticeships. Because you'll get one guy that's like working his bum off and get nothing signed off, but then you get another guy who's like mates with the assessor, and then, you know what I mean, he get loads of stuff signed off. So there's that.
I also think one thing that I'm working to put out at the moment is like, okay, you're an apprentice on site. What are the skills, or what do I need to look at to develop myself to be a site manager? And then I'm a site manager. What are some of the skills? Do I need to be a project manager? Like what are those things? Because I feel like there's not really that path showing out there. So like, hopefully looking back on some of my experiences, like, okay, I was apprentice here. What was I doing to then become a site manager? What was I doing there? What did I learn there to become, a senior site manager, then a project manager? Like, what are those progressive skills you need to do? So yeah, I think that's hopefully something I'm going to put out there eventually. It helps people through the construction industry.
No, I get it. To be fair, I've been sharing your stuff, which then makes my little ecosystem start sharing your stuff, and then you'll see, like, you'll be tagged in a lot of stuff lately. Yeah, no, it's just, to be fair, look, I think the way it works is if someone sees someone like yourself who genuinely cares about the industry and you're putting stuff out, we share it. That's just it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I did randomly have a guy I spoke to on Tuesday, actually. He's not even in construction. He's like a business. What is he? He's a consultant in New Plymouth, and he does like business productivity. And he just reached out to me. Never even met the guy. Just reached out to me. Hey, do you want to have a chat about, I'm in business productivity. Like, what are some key things that you see missing in the construction industry? And had a cool chat with him. That was sweet. That was pretty cool. And
yeah, but that's what I love about this, because I've met like multi-millionaires and have video chats, and they're like, yeah, I've done this software. I'm thinking about doing this software. What do you reckon? I'm like, this is amazing. Like, as I said, I was that kid who never paid attention in school. And that's the thing, and that's the beauty of this industry, right? Because I have a passion for what I do, but like a passion more than I've just done that work. I take that passion home and I'm like searching it up and then connecting to different people that like also have that passion. And that's the beauty of social media. If you're an apprentice, if there's an apprentice watching this, I reckon they should make a social media. I originally made my one as a photo diary for BCITO. That's originally what my social media was made for. Then it pivoted into what it is today. And yeah, no, it's I honestly, and then you're going to meet like-minded people, and it's funny because then they go, oh, I've just got this tool. I don't really need it. Do you want it? And then I like the other day I hadn't framed eaves in so long, and I knew someone that does it every day, so I just messaged him. I was like, hey mate, just double checking. This, and he's like, yeah, no, you do this. And then I'm just like, yeah, like you just got this wealth of information.
Yeah, and especially if you had that that organic network that people buy into your message you're putting out there, they're more willing to engage with you and contribute to you.
No, 100%.
No, sweet, Brendan. Well, yeah, any final words from you?
I think the final message is the same message I always say as a final message, and the message is do something you love. If you don't do what you if you don't love what you do, you will never be successful in it. Don't focus on the money. Just do what you love, and money comes later.
That's it for today's episode of Constructing Mindsets. Remember, every conversation is a chance to shift the culture of construction. Reviews are always appreciated. Until next time, take care and keep showing up with good energy.